All right, Eric, you're live.
All right. Thank you, Julian. Thanks everyone for joining tonight. This is I believe the third meeting of the West East Express Trail Stakeholder Committee. I believe our last meeting was in July. I'm Eric Lashinsky, Chief of Comprehensive Planning, as always. Brian Callahan is here from the Mayor's Office. Casey Ortiz normally joins from Planning and Zoning. He's out sick. But we have a few of our consultants here tonight who've been working on the trail project with us. So I just want to let them introduce themselves. And I don't know that we need to go through all the typical introductions, but why don't you go ahead, Brian White, then we'll go Flora Teeter.
I am Brian White with Mead & Hunt. I feel like I've met several of you in previous iterations of this meeting. I've been working with Eric and Brian Callahan for a couple of years on some various trail projects, and John Corn, of course, for many years before that.
And hi, I'm Megan Maffeo. I'm a landscape architect with Flora Teeter. We're a firm based in Baltimore, Maryland. And on this project and other projects in the city, we've been working with Mead & Hunt and staff at the city to explore ideas for ways to enhance these types of projects, these trail projects, and to create some placemaking features along the route. So also on the call from Flora Teeter is Joe Ignatius. So thanks for having us.
Hey, Joe, Megan, and Brian, thank you for being here. I think I'm going to try to include you on future meetings because it's really helpful for you to hear straight from folks on the committee, you know, what their thoughts are, so I don't have to translate to you. But before we dive into an update on the West East Express, I just wanted to give a reminder of some of the bigger picture projects that we're working on, so you can kind of see how this fits in. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And you all seeing this map here?
No, see it.
Did you? It's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. Okay. Mead & Hunt prepared this this exhibit a while back. It's already out of date. There's a few things off the map that I want to include, but this gives a sense of most of the active projects going on. So you can see in orange, these are the city projects that we're focusing on. The West East Express is you know, essentially starting here at Calvert by the People's Park, and you know, going all the way out to Parole, and then meeting up with the solid green line is an existing shared use path that's I believe technically considered part of the South Shore Trail that Anne Arundel County is extending farther north. While I'm out here on the west side of town, you can see this dotted red line is a project that Mead & Hunt is actually also working on with Anne Arundel County to better connect to Waterworks Park. This is Bestgate Road. So they're working from Bestgate to Housley Road right across General's Highway there. Other city stuff going on, and we continue to want to make signage improvements to clarify how important the Spa Creek connection, excuse me, Spa Creek Trail connection is from Forest Drive to the future West East Express across this tributary where there's an existing bike and pedestrian bridge. You know, this is just more of a letting people know that this is a major connection. It's a very low volume neighborhood street through here, but it's really critical north-south connection. Flora Teeter and Meat Hunt helped us with some conceptual designs for a trailhead at Street End by Ceremony Coffee that's kind of seen as an important connection point between the Spa Creek Trail and the West East Express. And we do have money in our capital improvement budget to advance that project. It's part of an existing Street End park, the Folks Street End Park there on McGuckin, I believe. There's some stormwater improvement part of that. Yeah. The College Creek Connector is a project we're continuing to try to advance that is sort of an important link into the city along the College Creek, connects to the West East Express. We have state funding to advance the design of that project. We're just continuing to work with St. John's College on how to make that project move forward, have it have value to the college. The red dotted lines here represent an active state project, MDOT SHA project. They're leading it. It's being funded partly by Anne Arundel County. We don't have a great name for it, but it's essentially the Maryland 450 retrofit, trying to bring people from the B&A Trail and others north of Annapolis into the city safely. As you all know, that's where our connection really ends, right at the foot of the Navy Bridge, and riders are kind of thrown into traffic. And Anne Arundel County is working separately on a connection, improved connection from the Navy Bridge to the B&A Trailhead at Bolter's Way. That's off the map here. Mead and Hunt is also working with Anne Arundel County on a small connection along Taylor Avenue that would go from Annapolis Street to the stadium. And that would be a shared use path on the east side of Taylor Avenue in front of where there's a fire station and a state police office. And so that would essentially get people to the stadium loop. In our capital budget for the city, I should probably show this. I mean, we have money to improve Taylor Avenue from the West East Express to where Mead and Hunt's project ends. So that project won't happen anytime fast, but the money is projected. It's in their capital budget. The only other thing I want to mention is down here, the southern portion of the city, Hilltop Lane, the Hilltop Lane Connector is an active project that Mead and Hunt is working on as well with Flora Teeter, and it's in the 65% design phase right now. That's been essentially fully funded and can't happen fast enough, but we are negotiating small easements with several different property owners along the portion from Spa Road, Forest Drive. So that's partly why these things don't move faster. And then finally, Forest Drive, obviously a major gap in our network, not very safe for cyclists or pedestrians. This dotted orange line right here, portion of that will be installed as part of the Villages at Providence Point development that would be kind of close to Forest Drive on this forested parcel. Most of that forested area is being conserved as a conservation easement, but the development is closer to Forest Drive, and they're providing a shared extension of the shared use path from where it currently ends at this solid green line to Spa Road, and then it will turn down Spa Road and go all the way to Hunt Meadow. As you all know, Anne Arundel County recently completed a Forest Drive safety study that looked at a whole range of improvements to Forest Drive. And, candidly, a lot of it was oriented to changing driver behavior, personal vehicle driver behavior, and a portion of it was focused on bike and pedestrian improvements. But we just put in a major grant with Anne Arundel County. They've taken the lead, of course. Forest Drive is a county road, but city helped get a grant application out for close to $8 million to basically implement that Forest Drive safety study. And a portion of that will go towards design of extending that shared use path all the way to Powell Park at Arundel on the Bay Road. So that's exciting. I think we have a pretty competitive application, and we'll find out. I think early in 2024, we've gotten, if we get the grant. So I think of course, the most recent grant that we got, it's off the screen here, in Eastport, downtown area. We got funding to advance what we're calling the Bay Ridge Avenue Bikeway. That would be improvements to connect downtown from the Eastport side of the Spa Creek Bridge to Quiet Waters Park, putting in improved bike facilities on Chesapeake Avenue, Bay Ridge Avenue, and then a portion of Hillsmere Drive. The portions of that will be very challenging because of right-of-way constraints, but we recently did a feasibility study, and I think we have a strategy for how to do that project. So MDOT gave us the money to advance the project. Somebody should probably mute, it sounds like. All right, well, that's it. I'm gonna.
Eric, there's one more small thing.
Questions. Say that again.
The state is also looking at the intersection of Chinkopin Brown Road and Aristide Allen Boulevard.
That's a great point.
Very difficult intersection. They're looking at trying to somehow thread the needle of improved pedestrian bike safety and also improved traffic flow. I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but that is their charge, and they're looking at that right now.
That's right. And some folks from City of Annapolis have been participating in that project. It is very preliminary, but a shared use path extension along the south side of 665 is being conceived as in any of their improvements to that intersection. So that's definitely one of the most problematic intersections in the county, and where there are a lot of crashes. So definitely a high priority for the state and county and the city. Any questions that I can answer before we dive into West East Express, just on the big picture?
Eric, I'll just say that it's a very long journey from idea to concept plan to design to construction to something being to a ribbon cutting. And the city has made tremendous progress in so many areas on that journey. We have to continue pushing. We've got to make sure the city has adequate budget in its capital plan so that it can provide the match for these big grants that it has now begun to start securing. But the city has come a long, long way just in the last couple of years here. And what you see here is a microcosm of what we're trying to do countywide. We have, as many of you I think know, we have a vision for an Anne Arundel Trail network countywide, and this is a very, very important part of that.
Hey, Eric, when you said there was funding procured, was that design funding or construction funding, or what was it for? What kind of funding are we talking about?
Which project are you referring to?
Just like any of them. I was just curious, like which ones are in the construction funding phase?
Okay, so they're all in design phase. They all have design funding, various levels. The only project that really has the construction funding secured is the West East Express. We were able to tap into some federal funding programs, and we had gotten the design to far enough point that we were able to give them some confidence that this was going to move forward. And but everything else will need to continue. I mean, the Forest Drive stuff that I mentioned, that would be for design and construction if we get that grant. But College Creek Connector, the stuff coming over the bridge, I believe is all still needs construction funding. But I think the dotted red lines at the Navy Bridge, I'm pretty confident that'll be fully funded for construction just because it's a major priority for state, county, city, Navy, everybody's sort of on board.
And that is fully funded through 100% design. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
By SHA, which is great, right?
Yeah. Anne Arundel County is putting in a 20% portion, I believe, for the design, but yeah, 80% is coming from SHA. Yeah, so we kind of piece this stuff together. Sure. Just to John's point a moment ago, I mean, I think what I've noticed is that once we sort of get in the pipeline to some of these grant programs, I mean, it's in the grant program's interest to see these projects through. So we just have to keep moving and give them some confidence we can see these projects through. And they have a partner here, and it gives me some hope that we'll be able to continue funding these all the way.
I'll give a caveat also on that is especially the federally sourced grant programs, which is where the big money comes from, the Transportation Alternatives Program, the RAISE program. They are not easy to execute. It's federal money administered by the state. There's a lot of red tape, and we've had county projects where they actually decided to forego the funding for fear of having to like redo a procurement and stuff. So don't celebrate when the money comes, celebrate when the project is completed, because that part is not easy. It needs a lot of attention to detail to get it right. So it brings a lot of money, but it brings a lot of complication, and sometimes it brings a lot of delays.
Right. That is absolutely true. There's no free trail money. All right. Well, I'll hand this over to Mead and Hunt and Flora Teeter now to kind of walk folks through where we are with the West East Express. And do you have the ability to share your screen?
I'll let you know in a second. Do I?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. I assume everybody can see my screen. Okay, great. So I have a presentation up, which isn't very long, but I also have current latest plans up, along with some photos to help us just talk through things as I walk the presentation, or as you have a question. So, welcome to the status project update. I wasn't quite sure what to call this. We're roughly 30%, maybe bleeding into 65% somewhere. It's a project that's kind of in flux, in a good way. It's moving along very, very nicely. I'm happy where we're at. By way of outline, I'll just talk about kind of where we are. I'll highlight a couple major intersection changes that are different from our last update. Megan will talk about some of the amenities that we're still looking at, and then I'll talk about some trail elements still to be determined, and then we'll open it up for questions. But in reality, I mean, I can take the question if it's in the middle of the presentation. It's not a problem. So where are we? We are somewhere, I quite know where to put this. We're somewhere toward the end of 30%. We're still there. But a lot of things we're doing are 65% type work, like grading plans where we figure out where we have to move dirt around, stormwater. We have a preliminary concept in with DPW right now for review. Both grading and stormwater are kind of critical pieces that you have to nail it down really before you start adding things like amenities, because you have to kind of know where you're not moving earth anymore, or where you're dedicating some space for, a bioswale or some type of stormwater retention. So we're sort of in this area where we're taking a lot of feedback from different agencies, stakeholders, the city, obviously city agencies, and the public. We've sort of gone past the area where we've identified physical constraints like electrical poles and lack of right of way and fences where we don't want to fight with anybody. So we've gone past concept, we've refined the concept, and we're sort of in this sort of iterative loop about how to improve the trail design at the same time figuring out how to manage stormwater as with a small footprint as possible. And then at the same time also starting to look at what kind of amenities we can do for the trail. And then, this is my guess. I think this is possible. Eric didn't shoot me down, but I really think we can wrap up final design end of next summer. And if it's possible, go into the bid phase where we bid it out for construction. So I want to talk about a couple of intersections. The Admiral Drive intersection, this is looking north, West Street's at the bottom. So our trail is going to come in behind Haka, north of the kind of the rail bed. I think the decision was made.
Annapolis Gardens, yeah.
That's right. Sorry, you're right. Annapolis Gardens, one mistake. I knew better. The decision was made to kind of go north of the existing industrial area and fence line, and then swing down where the existing crossing is. So what we did was we kept a 10-foot trail, and we gave, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here actually. So what we did was we gave a nice wide landing, a nice I think 14 by 10 foot landing on this side and a 10 by 10 foot landing on this side. And in order to widen the trail, we kind of pushed into Poplar Ave a little bit. There's just a bevy of utility poles and drainage wells in here that would be extremely cost prohibitive to relocate and design around. So it was better just to take some road space away, while at the same time making sure that schools can get in and out of Germantown Elementary. What I like about this is it does a couple of things with this design. It keeps the site distance adequate. Adequate's an engineering word, but basically you can see people in time to stop if you have to. This is a tough intersection to cross even in the middle of the day. So these sort of bends in the trail kind of, you basically force you to, as a cyclist, to slow down. And this is a shared use path for cyclists and walkers, but I'm strictly thinking of the cyclists here because they move the fastest. So these bends here not only just provide areas to stop, but also kind of force the slowing of one of the two vehicles that could potentially be in a collision. So this helps with sight distance issues by pushing it out a little bit here and giving a nice wider landing and spinning this trail around a little bit. One of the comments we got on our previous meeting was about this pedestrian island. we ultimately decided, the city did, to leave it in here. Our original plan kind of continued this widened, or narrowed roadway to force the trail out a little bit to avoid all the trees and poles and ditches that are back here. But ultimately it was decided that this needed to be saved. So we have a workaround. I think we were able to squeeze in a 10-foot pole or 10-foot trail and divide it up a little bit around this utility pole here. Before it swings back into 10 feet continuous. So
Brian,
that-
back at Admiral Drive, two questions. One is, was there any consideration for, I think we had some discussion of the possibility of traffic signal, traffic calming, so, something there, because as you indicated, it's a tough intersection. It's question one. And the second is, where you've got the trail, looks like outside the old rail bed.
Right.
Do we have right of way up there?
You don't. But we have talked with Annapolis Gardens. They are aware that we will need an easement.
They're very supportive, John. We just haven't got the actual document signed. We've shown it to them multiple times.
Okay.
Thanks for asking though. It's a very good question.
So where the traffic calming and the signal left off was, the city won't put a raised, I'm just going to speak candidly, the city won't put a raised crosswalk there. And you will consider a signal after it's built. In other words, it doesn't have to be contingent on this design.
Why won't the city put a raised crosswalk there?
The typical response we get is from Department of Public Works is a concern over emergency vehicles, fire in particular. We've pushed on it, and it's just it seems to be just it's the line.
Ambulances and the ladder truck are those things are brutal for the drivers and the patients.
Yeah, so I mean, to speak for a city engineer, what they typically say is like the higher the classification of the road, like the less likely you're going to get any kind of serious traffic calming on it. And Admiral is probably a minor arterial, if I had to guess, based on its size and speed. And that's how kind of vehicle roadway classification is. Poplar would be a collector. This would be a minor road. So you could see what you would see traffic calming in any jurisdiction really on a collector road and a minor road, but you're almost never going to see it on a minor arterial.
Hey, Brian, for a second, lower your hand down to the top of the line that's in the middle. Keep going a little bit more, another inch down to the top of that little line that's in the middle of Admiral Drive. Couldn't there be, yes, right there. Couldn't there be like just a little light, a flashing light there or something? I know we have the issues with the buses and stuff on that corner, but if it was just a dinky little small, like a 12-inch island or something.
Or maybe those rubber bollards that you can run over.
I will just say that I have seen buses stop there and wait for no one to be coming out of Poplar Avenue to make that turn. It's just FYI.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is tough.
This is one of the most toughest intersections on all of our work we're doing right now.
Really wish it could go straight across.
I think last time we also talked about some kind of treatment like bricks or something that's at the same grade as the roadway, but like at the I guess is it the Westgate Circle where there's bricks or something that just again is a traffic calming without introducing raised.
I like that idea, John.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And the easiest way to do that would be to stamp the concrete or stamp the asphalt.
Something.
Mill it down to 2 inches and record and just stamp it when it's hot. So next place I want to go is Glen Ave. So what we did here is we pushed the curb back a little bit and then inserted a median island. And this seemed to satisfy everybody. And it
Hey,
also,
Brian,
yep,
maybe just clarify that hatched gray and white hatched area that represents reclaimed right of way, correct?
this area right here. Well, no,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is existing curb. So this is where it is now. And everything in blue is basically new concrete. So we are technically widening the road, but also shrinking it at the same time. And providing basically breaking up this crossing.
I think
That's
the neighborhood
fantastic.
would really like that because that will slow traffic down.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
saying that's incredible. And we've been asking for that in the neighborhood, I think, in every meeting. So that's great to see.
Yeah, I love the island. I'm just curious, why 14-foot lanes? Because narrow lanes tend to slow traffic. Why make the lane so wide?
Well, in this particular case, you have a couple reasons. One is you have this weird, awkward movement, so it's not a clean movement. And secondly, you also have buses. You have buses going in all different directions, making turn movements. So we had to kind of accommodate the bus turn movements. But I don't think you're going to get much in the way of speeding here because I mean, if you're coming straight on, you have to jog pretty far to your right. There's no easy way to come through this intersection at speed. Between the sharp jog and the elevation change, it's not a pretty intersection to go fast in, and it definitely won't be once this is in place.
I don't know.
Gotcha. The other thing I wonder about here is, I think Glen is probably one of the most common places to get from the stadium trail to the Poplar Trail, whether there's any road markings, bike lane, crossing, just anything. That's a combination of wayfinding and alert to drivers.
That's a great point.
We have identified wayfinding hubs throughout all these projects, but that is a good spot for one.
Do we have sharrows that go up to the stadium?
Not on Glen.
I don't think so.
We should probably do that.
Those were supposed to have been installed. I'm glad somebody noticed because Public Works has promised those. I'll have to get back on them about that.
I'm making a note too.
Question on the island, is there an opportunity for landscaping on the island, like planters for flowers?
Yep. The only thing, I think the only thing you're going to pushback you're going to get from engineering is one of those, I don't know if you've ever seen, they're like diamond shaped orange. They're called object marker signs. They're just, maybe 12 by 12, each plant in the ground. But other than that, there's no reason not to landscape this.
Great.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
That'll also help slow people down.
I have that note someplace else, but I will find it here.
You want to be careful on height there, though, because if little kids are in that island, don't want plants that are going to make it hard to be seen.
Right. That's. I mean, everything in this area is going to have to be roughly 3 feet or less. So in here, in the island, as well as where I'm showing these very crude, do not enter signs, but just for sight distance, on the approach, you don't want to hide anybody.
Yeah.
On the southbound approach here and the northbound approach here. Here won't be a problem because this area is going to have to be some type of drainage ditch area, because it already is right now, actually.
If we do some kind of road marking on Glen, it should start all the way back where the Spot Creek Trail comes out by Bates. All, across Poplar, all the way to the Stadium Trail. That's East Coast Greenway route currently.
I thought there were showers on here. Maybe not. I know there's an East Coast Greenway sign down just south of.
You know what? We should actually put the East Coast Greenway or any other things on if they're near any of these projects, Brian, just so that helps enforce what we're trying to do.
I've actually never known who designates what the East Coast Greenway is. So I know it can change and has.
Yeah, the route,
Signs
the route,
most of-
yeah, the route through Annapolis is officially designated. It was very painful getting through that with the city. The city was the last jurisdiction in the whole state of Maryland to approve East Coast Greenway signage. We made some route adjustments, which actually worked out for the better. But yeah, it's sort of officially designated by the city before we could put those signs up. This is the September 11th Memorial Trail, which connects the 3 9/11 sites. Pentagon, World Trade Center, Shanksville, follows East Coast Greenway, as does the American Discovery Trail, which is an Atlantic to Pacific east-west route. They all follow the East Coast Greenway through Anne Arundel County and Annapolis. So
That also touches our Hilltop project, Brian.
yep.
So just having those somehow on the maps, I think would be helpful.
All right. I think that's all for me for right now. I'll come back in a little bit after Megan.
Okay, so I'll jump in and talk a little bit about amenities that we have been exploring and enhancements along the trail corridor. So both along the section where we're looking at widening, as well as the section where we're extending. But primarily we're seeing most of the opportunities in between Taylor Avenue and Admiral, or really between Taylor Avenue and the elementary school, the Germantown Elementary School, is where we're finding the most opportunity to focus amenities and placemaking. And I just want to start by saying placemaking really references the idea of transforming spaces, public spaces, to strengthen connections between people and place. And we really, when we've been out to this site and see people using the site, there does seem to already be a strong connection, at least for the residents living adjacent to the trail. And it really does have a park-like feeling. So with that in mind, the suggestions that we're making respond in many ways to how the people are already using the trail, but also how do we expand those opportunities for both physical activity and social engagement in sort of parallel with overall user experience and safety features that Brian mentioned and talked about. So these slides are going to show a series of ideas throughout the corridor. We don't recommend that all of these ideas are constructed, but these are locations where we have identified opportunities, and we really want to get a sense of which of these features resonate with you, and that will help us calibrate what is the right mix of features to move forward in the design. So starting at the east side of the trail at Taylor Avenue, near the police station, we're proposing an edge or buffer plantings adjacent to the existing residence, and then also to maintain the existing plantings along the trail between the parking lot and the trail at the police station. So we really want to enhance and protect the existing plantings to the extent that we can, and then insert some amenities along the way. So the first one that we're proposing, just prior to crossing the heavily vegetated sort of stream channel, we've identified an opportunity for a seating area. And this is really envisioned to resemble more of a deck. You'll see the image at the bottom right image is a representation of what that might look like, sort of a deck, casual seating. Here we're showing Adirondack chairs, but it could be a more traditional bench type seat, because we know that not all of our residents are really comfortable sitting that low and getting up. So we want to be sure to include seating along the options that can work for everyone. This deck seating area is an example of an amenity that would fall in the social engagement category. So a little bit smaller, intimate space that could encourage conversation and serve as a resting spot. So on the opposite side of that stream channel, we're recommending a gateway feature, and that would be the second image that you see at the bottom of the slide. A series of 3 metal arches, and this feature could be visible. It would be visible from a distance and give users a sense of sort of entering the linear park as you approach the first activity node closer to Glen Avenue. And you'll also see in between those 2 features, it's noted that fencing and lighting enhancements would be proposed in that area. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation.
Megan, can those be dressed up with art?
Yes, there's definitely opportunity. We see adding art to the corridor as an important opportunity. In fact, we've identified a location a little bit closer to Glen, but yeah, I mean, depending on how we would want to approach that, working with local artists, having some workshops with the community to really sort of work through materials, theming, what those could be. That could be placed along the corridor at
Yeah, Annapolis has, Annapolis has world-class muralists and public artists, and yeah, we should look for opportunities to work with them along here.
Yeah, and I mean, this image of the gateway is just one representation of what that could look like. I mean, the gateway could be an art feature, Let's go to the next slide.
John, as the arts representative, I couldn't have said it any better.
So as we move west along the trail, we'll come to the first activity node. And this one has a social engagement theme to it. It's more family-friendly amenities. We are showing 2 picnic seating areas adjacent to the trail on either side, as well as a nature-based play area. And just to the west of that play area is that location for future art installation, sort of setting that aside in that activity node. Probably visible from Glen Avenue, definitely visible from Poplar. As we move across Glen and to the west side, there are a couple of features, deck seating area, similar to what was talked about closer to the police station, similar in material, a little bit smaller in size, but we saw this as an opportunity. There's already some stepping stones and some really nice planting on that side of the trail that we're going to be able to preserve. So maybe working that deck seating area around one of the trees, really sort of showcasing that, and creating a shaded seating area would be a nice feature. And then moving further west, we're proposing to remove the existing plaza, but to really sort of replace that with these other amenities. I know there's a community information sign in that existing plaza, and we could find a spot for that. Either near that deck seating closer to Glen might make a lot of sense, or near a new bench feature. And here you'll see that precedent imaged on the far left at the bottom of the slide. We really see this as an opportunity to do something a little unexpected, something interesting. Again, this could even be something that's collaboration with an artist in the community, but a seating area, a place to stop, take a rest, meet up and have a conversation. And then I also want to point out, you'll see a couple of spots throughout the corridor where there's a trail crossing. So there's a sidewalk connection to the trail from adjoining roadway or residence. And at those, I believe there's 3, maybe 4 of these throughout the corridor. And at this area, we want to sort of create a consistent design. So we're looking at a sort of mini circle with wayfinding signage, accent paving sort of in the center of that mini circle. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about that later on another slide, but I just wanted to point out so you can start to see where those fall sort of along the corridor.
Megan, I assume you have bike racks at all these stopping places?
We have not integrated the bike racks yet. As Brian talked about, we're really trying to figure out, where does the stormwater go? What are the grades going to be doing? And that will really help us sort of integrate those features throughout the corridor. We haven't identified a location for like a bike fix-it at this point, but if we feel like that would be important, maybe we do that closer to the school. If we go to the next slide, it'll take us to the second activity zone. And that is a little bit closer to, right adjacent to the school. There you go. So that might be a really good location to have the bike fix-it. In this area, we see this activity zone as more of a encouraging physical activity. There's been some discussion about incorporating an outdoor fitness station. We really see these as being popular in the communities, getting outdoors, working, exercising with your friends, and getting outside of the traditional gym environment. It is located in an area where exists some existing impervious surface, but it's also adjacent to a residence. So we'd want to make sure that we buffer it with a nice evergreen hedge, really create a little bit of visual separation there. And then you're also seeing parallel to the trail, a spur trail or a second trail called we've identified it as a possibility for a bike pump track. And different than your normal sort of even elevation, consistent trail. This is similar material that it could be asphalt, which is what we would suggest here for ease of maintenance, but it's more of an undulating change in elevation, just a little bit more fun and interesting for the younger crowd and maybe the older crowd on their commute. Gives them a little something to look forward to on their ride home or their ride to work. And there are options for integrating some obstacles into that, but I don't know if that's necessarily exactly what we would do here, but
I will use that.
You're going to use it?
I will use that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think more people will, people that you wouldn't expect to use it would be using it. So
I've seen bike party riders use it before it's even there.
Yeah.
So we right now, I'm just showing really a generic conceptual line through there. It could potentially expand onto the school property. We're working to get some conversations with representatives from the school to explore that and see, you know, how much of a amenity can we fit in there. We do think we can at least fit a linear piece, whether it's more of a loop or a linear. I think it's a really great opportunity. All right, let's go to the next slide.
Megan, before we move further west, anything near Studio 39? I mean, there you have a visual and performing arts center. That, you know, that's just a little bit east there. It just seems like a natural to do something connected to that place.
Student art.
That is right there. Yeah.
That's a good recommendation. Yeah, I don't.
It's a little bit east of what we're looking at.
Okay. No, we haven't proposed anything there yet. So that's
Even something that changes, like if there was some big, I don't, you know, I'm not an artist by any means, but it's like some big mural board that, you know, every semester they put something new on there.
Hold your horse, because I live
don't know.
across the street from there, so anything like that's gonna have to go by me first.
sounds good.
That's a relief to me, Jonathan.
Megan, one thing I wanted to mention was the proposed deck area near the police station. And if someone works with a homeless population, since that area is a little bit hidden from view, that could easily turn into a homeless encampment just because there's not a lot of eyes on the area. That I'm wondering if we couldn't figure out how do we incorporate having some more engagement with the police department and maybe put something on their site to make it easier for the police to do community engagement with people who are biking through versus doing something in an area that has less eyes on the trail.
I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, but I actually had a whole different idea. I had an idea of a half circle on the south side, looking over the cemetery and basically kind of facing the police department and the cemetery and the valley that's there. That's a big drop. That's like 30 or 40 feet drop. It's currently bamboo, but I actually did a little sketch here because on the next slide that you had, Megan, zip line, I like that. Can you that wooden thing? I was like, that would be cool if half of the circle, the half circle I'm talking about, it's facing the neighbors right there, had something like that, maybe even a little bit higher to keep the sound from going towards those neighbors. And then the view shed is seeing the police department basically and the cemetery in the valley. And then you could also have lighting and cameras, a camera right there with the police department right there. If anybody ever did try to sleep there or if kids had a party, the police department would see it right away.
Well, the police don't monitor the cameras. They're usually used after the fact.
We got to fix that.
Yeah, I think we just need to decide if, you know, that part of the trail is where we want to focus one of these larger amenities, and then we can start sketching, start working through those details that you're talking about, Brian.
And
I
my other,
actually love your gate idea too, and it's kind of cool going into the neighborhood.
Mhm.
But man, it would be cool if it was out closer to Taylor so that people driving by would see, like, what's that? That's the entryway to the we, you know?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's something about artwork right there. You find the police station too that kind of delineates the bike trail and makes something artistic and fun.
Yeah, in that little corner. We got a little corner there, I think.
Some of the space is going to be taken up.
With the circle.
The hotel is using some of the space for, I believe, bioretention. Some type of stormwater facility is going here as part of the requirements.
Maybe we can incorporate a artistic thing with the stormwater management.
I'd also just caution against the use of wood and whatever designs you use for benches, etc., just because of maintenance. I mean, I'm working on a city park right now that I got grant money for, and as a pergola the top was taken off of it 10 years ago and it was never replaced. It just has columns sticking up out of the ground that were left behind.
And they only lasted 10 years from when they were built.
Yeah, so I'm just saying wood is a tough option for maintenance. It doesn't last that long. Metal, plastics, whatever, is something to consider for longevity.
Yeah,
it's really humid around here and stuff. Wood just has a hard time, it seems.
Yep.
Yeah, the other thing to think about is color. I mean, we could if we're doing metal, we can do a powder coat in really any color that we want.
Yep.
I had a couple comments on the deck by the police department. I believe there's actually a trash. That's where the trash for the police department is collected in that corner. And
That's true.
Yeah, it's not a great spot. It's not a natural spot where people hang out in the neighborhood. So I worry that would be wasted.
Maybe we should encourage that to be relocated during this redesign phase.
The other thing that the community has spoken about is that the trail has sort of this interesting history of being a railroad, and some members of the community thought it would be interesting to take that theme and integrate it into the design. So something to think about. I don't know if I like it or not, but if you're thinking about like a natural play area for kids, like a train, a play gym of like a train or something might be kind of interesting. I don't know, I'm spitballing, but that was something that the community had requested.
Megan, did you see the images that Brian had of, was it College Park, Brian?
The Charlie Trail, yeah.
I think that's what everybody liked that idea, because we saw some really cool images of that kind of had a little bit of railroad.
Yeah, like big railroad crossing signs and stuff like that. I don't know if it's too tacky or not, but
Jonathan, are there any remnants from the like on the B&A? There's places where there's still tracks. There's places where there's a power substation, and
there's like a couple things. There's like some old posts. There might be one track switch thing somewhere, but generally a lot of it's been removed.
Yeah. That's my impression.
Yeah, I would just echo
track marks too.
Sorry, I just want to echo Jonathan's thoughts on the placement of that deck area. As another resident, it isn't really a natural gathering spot. I think that most people tend to focus on between the end of Poplar Ave and the schools there right now. So I think kind of focusing the amenities in that area makes sense. I do love Brian's idea of having like a deck into that several acre kind of wooded area there over the headwaters of College Creek that's currently bamboo. I mean, I think that's just an underutilized
that's my location that I was talking about.
Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic. That'd be a great like birding spot.
I really think the view of the cemetery would be beautiful if we got rid of that bamboo.
But yeah, I don't think that would be it doesn't strike me as like the optimal spot for a seating area where it currently is proposed.
Back to the area closer to Taylor where there's bioretention in the future bioretention. If we were to do something there, would it be more of a visual marker, or would we want to integrate some seating? Or do you think people would even stop? in that
Visual.
area?
Visual.
Okay.
If you did seating, it would be, I would think, trying to get into the police department or the hotel site and kind of working with them to create a gathering spot that has more eyes on it.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a busy intersection. We're busy.
Do we have any influence over the shape of their bioretention? I mean, bioretention can be beautiful, but a lot of times it's not.
Yeah, Eric, could you help us coordinate with the,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe they've already got the plan done, maybe they don't.
Well, you're going to be getting this space back, right? So
Yeah, we are going to get.
trails
that
built,
back.
this trail's going to be wide, and so
Yeah.
this trail goes away, and you have the space here for future use.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, at the very least, maybe we can reach out to see where they're at with their design and just go from there. Because it's definitely
Yeah,
an
well,
opportunity.
It will definitely help you know the parameters.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The
Is
only
that
other-
is that hotel gonna have any little restaurant or coffee shop or anything? I'm just wondering, you know, the way Big Bean is like the central gathering place on the B&A. Is there anything
Not in
close
that
to
one.
Poplar? That's what I thought. It's a little more comfort inn
Residential.
style, right? Yeah.
The residences behind it already had a hard enough time. If they had tried to do that, John, I think that would have been,
No,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting add anything. I'm just wondering, I just didn't know what was already in their plan.
Mhm.
Very well.
I would imagine if they're already under construction, they've got their stormwater designed and approved.
yeah. They would have.
So we can take a look and see what's available and what we've got to work with over there. So
Yeah.
really, the areas that I've presented are where the amenities, the activity and social gathering are focused. From the school west, we would really be looking at planting enhancements, potentially some fencing and some lighting. There's a lot of constraints with just space in general, drainage swells, utility poles, overhead and underground utilities. So it really does limit what we're able to do. And then we really don't want to cause any issues with sight distance, or we just want to focus these areas of gathering and activity where people are naturally gathering. So that's really why we focused on the areas we focused on. If you go to the next two slides, the next slide shows a few images of landscaping, and I just wanted to point out that as we're refining what these amenities are, where they're located, we can use plantings to be functional, to create edges, buffer the trail and these amenities from the roadway, enhancing the tree canopy, create shade. We can work with Brian's team on what that bioretention, the linear facilities that we need to integrate along the trail to manage the stormwater. We can plant those with ornamental grasses, perennials, to both be really beautiful, but also create habitat for birds and bees and insects that really sort of are interesting to watch throughout the season.
Mhm.
We know that the community, the residents are out there gardening, so we want to make sure that we incorporate some planting beds for seasonal bulbs. It's nice when it's still cold to see some daffodils popping up. We'll make sure that we're using natives. We don't really want to, we want to make sure that we can be resilient to deer and rabbits. So there's a lot to think about when we're looking at species, not to mention the overhead lines, which will limit the types of trees we can do to smaller and medium size, but it also might be an opportunity to integrate some fruit-bearing trees, playing off of the idea of an urban orchard. And we have talked with some representatives from the city when we've been working through our forest delineation and forest conservation requirements. That seems something that they're open to. So we'll keep that in mind as we're progressing these plans and the planting concept.
I'd like to float an idea if I could. Could you bring up satellite view that'll show Studio 39, Germantown Elementary in Phoenix? Like show that whole little square there, satellite view. Yeah, right there. So you see how there's like a little network of sidewalks. Like if you zoom in a little bit. So you see right there. There's a circle in front of Studio 39. There's kind of an oval back there between Studio 39 and Phoenix. There's a sidewalk that I think connects up to Germantown Elementary. I'm just thinking for kids, they put them on a straight trail and they love nothing more than let's get off this trail and let's go explore. Whether there's some kind of little like kids route or something. And Jonathan, you're right there. You probably know, is there something to that or not?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the kids
idea,
learn to ride their bikes on the basketball court beside Studio 39. That's a popular spot. There are a lot of great little sidewalks, and the community has a lot of events. We call it Luminaria. That's coming up in a little bit, and we all do a night lighted walk with the Annapolis Brass Band around that circle in the middle. So there's a lot of activities that do go on those trails that, yeah, kids love to play in like the woods between Studio 39 and Germantown, and there's a little path that goes through there. So
I just wonder if it was marked, numbered, like go, give it a name, give it an identity, and where kids and families could go exploring around there. Even do kids bike events. We just had at Lifeline on Sunday, we had for the first time a kids bike safari at Kinder Farm Park, 2.5 mile loop. We had animals, stuffed animals all around. They got a little passport. I mean, this area would really lend itself to fun, family oriented stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's
we've
That's a good idea.
seen ideas too where you have signage or stations along the route where kids can take a piece of paper and make a rubbing of an animal or a paw print or any of
Exact. Yeah,
becomes
stuff like that.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Going back to the plantings for a moment, the design pictures you have are absolutely beautiful. One concern that has been raised by the community is the ability of DPW to maintain these facilities. Grass like that, there's no way they have the ability to maintain it at that level. Irrigation, I'm sure, would be required to keep it that green and nice looking. And I bet in like 3 years, it would just be back to, clover and weeds. But, we also have a problem with DPW cutting down things, and they just hack away at the shrubs and things that have been planted in the area. So if there's any consideration for a low maintenance design, we're not going to get a lot of support long term, I don't think.
Well, that was kind of what my thinking was along when I was looking at all this. And like what you have right now has taken almost, 2 decades really to get to how pretty it is. I wonder how much that, like, I'm not so sure it's a good idea to program every inch, right, of the park.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Just have areas that are in this design.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's like a city, right? A city changes throughout the years. I mean, this park has changes throughout the year. In that, the park that we design now is not going to be the park it's going to be in 10 years. I just feel like it's one of those things where you don't want to program it too much. Then it becomes not your park.
Yeah, it might be good to locate areas that would be community owned, in a sense, the planting areas that community members would want to plant and steward, and then, just be kind of clear about those areas perhaps. There's a woman in our Rec and Parks department named Marissa Whitlinger, who's our horticulturalist. We should involve her and our urban forester, Brian Adams, in terms of tree species that they'd be looking for, just in terms of ones that'll, I know Megan,
Low
you
maintenance.
probably could guess. Yeah, low maintenance and ones that'll survive well. And
Yeah, but Eric, one thing, and I have to go back and agree with the residents, is Public Works is gonna be the one who maintains it, not Parks and Recs. And Parks and Recs is gonna say, go for as native as possible, which is actually could be higher maintenance. Because all Public Works can do is run a lawnmower and a weed whacker. And if you want to go see an example, go look at the Eclipse parking lot behind the visitor center that was planted all natives. They got some areas they beat to the ground that's dead. They have other areas that, it just looks like a weed patch, has been touched in years. So you really have to go as low maintenance as possible because they just can't handle it.
And I think Brian's point about designating, certain areas of the trail where you want more landscaping and not trying to do that throughout the whole corridor is important. But I lost my train of thought. You can do it in a way that with natives that are tolerant of not needing irrigation, drought, especially even in bioretention facilities, there are species out there that can handle both drought and periodic inundation. What I was going to say was initially planting more closer together rather than further apart gives you a quicker aesthetic of it being more of a finished landscape. Also, it shades out the ground level so you don't have as many weeds taking over. So that's another strategy.
Yeah, the library planted a lot of native things, and now there, invasive trees have started to pop up, the black walnut or whatever it is, things like that just sort of come in. And I mean, it would take a lot of people to maintain it as a native garden, because of the invasives, I think. But
yeah, the library's a hot mess right now. If you look at their planting beds up front along West Street side.
Yeah.
This is for smaller scale, but some of the county trails, they have Friends of Anne Arundel County Trails. They have planting beds, volunteers maintain them. I don't know if there's any possibility of Friends of Poplar Trail one day as this gets spiffed up. They're not going to maintain some of the more elaborate stuff we see here in the pictures, but small planting beds, you might be able to get community associations to do some of that.
Yeah, support native planting, and I think to some degree, as has historically happened in Poplar Trail, the community has to take ownership of it. We have to take some sort of ownership. And I just want to throw out, I kind of like leaving the current rest station with the bulletin board, because to me, gives us a little bit of a sense of history. I'm not a fan of like just clean mowing everything over. So I'm kind of like it to stay, as well as, as many of the current trees as is feasible, especially the apple tree.
The tricky part is probably the one person who does it, Bob Waldman. He's been maintaining the park for years. We can't rely on his investment, and there's not everyone has time to put in what he does to keep the apple trees pruned and cleaned up and the bees off of them and everything else. And it's it would be great if there were more funds from the city or government to help pay for this stuff. Just the maintenance ongoing, but yeah, I mean, I love apples and apple trees and natives too.
I feel you, but many hands make light work, and y'all are pretty organized in Germantown. So what happened to the, wasn't there the Green Brigade or the something brigade every spring?
Yeah, I mean, but then that's it.
Yeah,
everyone disappears till next year.
Right.
Sorry, I've worked on a lot of these projects, and I mean, everyone always says like, the community is going to organize and do it, and I mean, to your point, like we have been doing that, but it's a pretty small number of people, and frankly, the average age of the person who's maintaining Poplar Park is pretty old, so they're not going to be able to do that forever. So I think I agree. Like I definitely want as much native as possible. And one thing that I've seen work in other park projects is just simply like limiting the number of species. Because I think a lot of times these people, people who are promoting natives, they want lots of species to support, tons of biodiversity, which is all good. But then you run into some serious maintenance problems that can really backfire on you. So I think like one of the things that I've seen kind of be effective is really trimming down those number of species that you have planted along there. Maybe getting more creative with the design, but that'll just make it easier for whoever's maintaining it, whether it's DPW or whether it's the neighborhood groups, to kind of know what they're dealing with, to know what they're looking for as far as weed pressure and things like that. So that'll just be kind of one suggestion. But yeah, I would hesitate just to say like, oh yeah, like community will definitely maintain it long term. Like without, like Jonathan said, without maybe some formal commitment, or to the point being made of like forming an actual friends group that's being able to tap into nonprofit fund sources.
I think that's realistic.
Yeah, I mean, just so folks, I mean, like long term, the issue that you're describing is not new to folks here at city staff. I mean, I think I've started to have more conversations about the potential long term for like a Parks Foundation type entity that could help to support our Rec and Parks department, and to bring in additional funding from private sources for maintenance and upkeep and do more ambitious things that we're kind of hampered by. That's kind of the long term strategy. I think the more trails that we build, beyond just plantings, they're going to have maintenance considerations that are beyond our current staff, and so it's something that we're trying to prepare for already. But in the short term, all of your comments are totally on point, I think.
So this is my last slide, and it really just shows some images of signage, wayfinding, directional guidance along the trail, integrating some alternative paving materials at key points, and how do we integrate lighting locations that really need it. Not everywhere needs it, but there are some spots along the trail that we feel like it's important to get some lighting in, whether that's integrated into the fencing or it's a new fixture that's attached to existing utility poles. There are a lot of different options that we need to explore in that realm, but we are exploring them. We are looking into, what is the balance of cost, using materials that are lower maintenance, high efficiency and effectiveness in what we're proposing. You'll see the one image, which is that trail over the drainage swale. It's in between where we talked about having the arbor and that deck seating area. It's overgrown vegetation on either side, and it is a little bit, I imagine, scary if you're walking through there at night. And we're getting ready to go into the winter season when we have much less daylight every day, and there's still people using this to commute and to walk, so in the evening. So we're thinking about, as we're working further in the design, where does this lighting need to happen along the trail? How can we do it in a cost-effective way? Because lighting can be a really expensive component. And how do we do it in a way that's not causing light pollution for the neighbors, but provides something to help improve the safety along the trail?
Yeah, that was kind of I mean, this is the last slide, but it's a good segue, because the community's input is going to really drive what kind of lighting here we would put here, more so than in other projects, because it's a trail that's surrounded by houses. So I mean, we'll have to do, as part of any of this, I think we'll have to do I know you will, a kind of a photometric analysis, like how much of this light is getting to the front of your house, or is it too much, is it too little? So there'll be a balance between lighting up the trail for safety and lighting up the neighborhood for not safety, or for light pollution. So we'll have to balance a lot of different pieces here. And I mean, currently there's no lighting on the poles throughout the trail. So we can tap into those. We can use a cluster lighting in a plaza area. We can do uplighting for the artwork. I mean, there's a handful of things we can do here, and I think your all input is going to be the most critical factor here. A couple of other things we're going to be doing in this current phase is finalizing where all the stormwater is going, finalizing what easements we need, and then we can dive into the nitty gritty of the amenities and lighting and plazas and trees and artwork, because everything else will be, all the hard work will be done with, all the boring work will be done, and we can get to the fun stuff that makes it an attractive place. So that was actually the last slide. The other slide here. So
I also want to, sorry, I got a barking dog here. I want to acknowledge that Megan's comments earlier about we're pretty hampered in both directions from the existing Poplar Trail in terms of what we can do in terms of these placemaking elements. I think to the west, we do have a few opportunities, and at our next meeting, we can talk about some thoughts on that. But that segment starts out right behind some people's homes, Annapolis Gardens. So, I mean, in all likelihood, there will be some fencing proposed as part of that trail segment. And then there's a couple of connections from that western extension, both north and south, that we can talk about. We've been trying on our end to identify a southern connection to West Street that would help to provide some access, so it's not just a long like tunnel essentially from Admiral Drive to Gibraltar. And yeah, there's a property that we understand is under review by our current planning department, and so it's a little premature to kind of get into the details on it, but it's just this narrow lot that has that single pink house in the front. We're trying to coordinate to provide an access corridor for that. So hope to have more information on that when we next meet, which I think I'd like to do maybe just before Thanksgiving. But yeah, I mean, we want to do something else beyond just the trail from Admiral Gibraltar, but it is it's tight, and the stormwater management needs there are something that the team is.
Well,
still
what about
working
something
out.
through the library? Bush Library, that connects west to the trail.
It
Oh,
doesn't-
definitely. We are talking about that. Well, this was just down on that whole last segment. We needed a
Mhm.
connection.
It's right. Yeah, so the back service road there. So, I mean, I'm not sure beyond letting people know that, you know, that's the connection to the trail, but if folks have other thoughts on stuff that should be at the library that would tie into the trail, I mean, we can definitely talk about that. But I think from my perspective, it's more about just making people aware that you're just a very short distance away from the trail for those who aren't familiar with it. We're at 7:30. I just want to be respectful of folks' time, but any last thoughts?
Yeah, like what about for connections to West Street in that area is like maybe like the Burger King, you know, so somebody could stop and get a sandwich or a coffee or a Coke or something. And it kind of leads into like what John was talking about earlier about, you know, there not being necessarily a spot along the trail and stop and get something to eat or drink. And that could create.
We definitely have talked about that, Eric. So yeah, we're gonna try to meet with the Burger King people because we have talked about that spot.
You got KFC, and then there's like a new bakery or something that just opened up on West Street. I don't know what the name of it is. That's on that side as well.
No, that's a good point. I mean, I think to some degree, what I've seen happen in other places where you build a major trail project, some of the businesses then start to make their back entry, you know, more prominent and more of a front porch to the trail. You know, they start to realign themselves, just like the coffee shop in Severna Park did. So some of this will happen organically, I think, over time. But the Burger King is a good one, I guess, because they have. We may end up looking at that for stormwater stuff because they have a big.
They have a huge
pond in the
stormwater
back.
issue.
Yeah, I don't know that it's designed.
You've got great coffee shops at either end, but both require a tough crossing. You've got, you know, if you can get to Double T, then you're at Rise Up at that end. And if you cross West Street, then you've got Ceremony, you know, over at the other end. But again, neither of them are like right on Poplar, and they both require, yeah, one requires cross West Street, the other requires cross Route 2.
Yeah.
Eric, you had any conversations with the folks that own the Chris's charcoal pit that sort of has never recovered from the hurricane as a possible?
No, not yet. What we did was we made our folks, and believe it or not, you know, as significant as this project is, you know, there are folks in planning and zoning who are involved on development projects, who aren't necessarily abreast of every single detail going on with it. And so we made them aware. There's a team of about 4 or 5 people in my department that's called Current Planning. They're the folks who shepherd through new development projects or, you know, redevelopment of sites like these and do the permitting. And we made them aware of where we are with this project and the need to connect to West Street. And so what I would, and I do review projects that are called major site plan review. There's a trigger for what's called major site plan, but essentially I'm confident that any project that comes online along this corridor, it's a significant redevelopment, would have a tie-in, and it would be required of their site plan to connect to this trail. Just things don't happen very quickly along this corridor, but just try to make everybody aware that that's a need. I don't know what the status of the Christmas Charcoal Pit site is, to be honest. I know they moved, you know, the restaurant itself moved to Edgewater. I don't know who the owner is exactly, but I imagine they're just trying to get somebody else to redevelop that site. We'll keep our eye on it. All right, well, thanks everybody for the input. I took a lot of notes. I know our
So did I.
yeah. And like I said, I'm going to try to schedule a follow-up before Thanksgiving. Would be our next meeting, so we'll try to give you plenty of notice for that. And you know, hope you can join. And just don't hesitate to reach out if you have any thoughts after tonight, that things you meant to share tonight that forgot didn't come to you. And we'll let them.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Really appreciate all your time and enthusiasm.
Great meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Great work, everyone.
Bye.
Looks awesome.
Appreciate it. See ya.
Bye.